Welcome to the podcast. This is Ron's Amazing Stories, where we play tales to take you away from today. Happy Thanksgiving. I'm releasing this one on the day, so I hope that you and your families are having a wonderful break.
Oh, yes.
This is going to be a very different show from normal. I needed to take some time off for a special project that I have to thank my brother Jim and his wife for. Truly wonderful news. But what about today's podcast?
What about that?
Well, not to worry, we do have stories for you, and it all begins with this amazing 5-minute mystery.
Another 5-minute mystery.
This 5-minute mystery is being brought to you by... Well, this mystery is actually pretty good, and I really don't have to make fun of it. Pretty rare for these often super silly stories. So if it has to be brought to you by something, why not the word amazing? Here's the story.
In a hospital on the east side, a dying patient gives a last expiring gasp. He's gone. Slipped through my fingers like water running through a sieve.
It's not your fault, Dr. Grant. You've done everything you could. The hospital's certainly not failed
Nurse,
to do...
this man should never have died. Something's wrong. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure that James Towner here did not die of the ailment he came to this hospital for. Nurse, I'm going to get permission to perform an autopsy.
Your hunch was right, Dr. Grant.
What is it? Tell me, Jones.
When we tested Towner's blood in the lab, a foreign substance showed up immediately. I didn't recognize it, but one of my assistants seemed to think he knew what it was. So I let him make tests. A rare poison used only by the South American Indians was introduced into the bloodstream of the victim. It killed him, all right.
But that's impossible, Dr. Grant.
Jones, did your man say whether this poison could have been taken through food or...
I thought of that, too. He swears it is the only effective way when it is taken directly into the bloodstream.
And is there any antidote?
Not known. My man says the Indians obtain a certain immunity by injecting themselves with small amounts over a long period of time.
How could that poison have gotten into Towner's bloodstream?
Doctor, I was with the patient every minute he was here. I could swear he had nothing intravenous during the whole time except the transfusions. 2 of them, which you ordered yourself.
The transfusions? Who was the donor?
Mr. Harkness, a friend of Towner's, happened to be visiting him. The friend immediately offered him blood. Towner was grateful and accepted. Harkness said something about his being the least he could do. We tested his blood and found it the right type, so we did the transfusion.
I think we ought to investigate Harkness.
But, Dr. Grant, I'm positive that Mr. Harkness did not even touch Mr. Towner during the whole time of his illness.
If what I'm thinking is true, Harkness had something to do with the death of James Towner just the same.
Well, we were certainly lucky, Doctor. There's no question about it. Harkness is your man.
I knew it. I've had Harkness investigated by the police. He's mentioned in Towner's will, gets the whole estate. The police have searched his apartment and found just what I expected. I feel my medical judgment has been vindicated, Jonesy.
You're right, Doctor. We're going to have this man Harkness arrested for the murder of James Towner.
Do you know what the doctor and the laboratory technician discovered which indicated to them that Harkness murdered his friend Towner? The doctor will tell you in a moment. But first...
Other than the acting being a bit campy, everything seems to be in order. But how did he do it? The nurse said he didn't get anything intravenously, but that can't be right, because he did get a complete blood transfusion. Well, let's get back to the tale and see what the lab technician found. I'm rather curious.
And now, back to our story.
Well, Doctor, what have you found?
The thing that indicated to me the fact that Harkness had a hand in the murder of James Towner was something Jones said when he spoke of the poison, and the way the South American Indians gained immunity from it. I deduced that probably, against the chance that his so-called friend would need a transfusion, Harkness had so immunized himself over a period of time. If he had, the poison would still be in his blood in some quantity, small perhaps, but enough to react unfavorably on Towner in his condition. A police search verified my hunch. And now, Harkness is being tried for one of the most unusual murders that has ever come to my attention.
Wow, that is one patient murderer. To wait around on a guy until he needed a transfusion? That is all kinds of patience. I mean, you would have to follow him around town asking, "Hey man, how do you feel? Do you need some blood or something?" Incredible. Hats off to the guy. In fact, this 5-minute mystery is dedicated to our murderer. Hear, hear. Well, here we are in the holiday season already. A couple years ago, I promised that I would never do replays again. In keeping that promise, I do have to think of creative ways to take some time off, and this podcast is an example. This one's going to be kind of a throwback to the days when I would play just old-time radio. Of course, now we do so much more on this show. We have your stories where you send in the tales of things that have happened to you. We have our regular guests like Sylvia Schultz, who was here last week, and Jason Dowd, who is scheduled to be here in a couple weeks. We read short stories from the pulp mags, segments about strange facts from around the world, experience moments in time, and so much more. You never really know what you're going to get on Ron's Amazing Stories until you listen. So sit back today while I take a break with my family and enjoy today's special stories. For this special Thanksgiving podcast, I wanted to play something that was timeless. When you're talking about old-time radio, this can be problematic. Things have changed, and the way we tell stories have changed as well. However, sometimes the storytellers of 70 years ago got it just right. That is the case for our story today. It comes from the series Dimension X and truly does fire on all cylinders. But why? The answer is simple. The story takes place on a planet where conditions are very different from those here on Earth. In this one, we're forced to imagine what life would be like with no night. Granted, there are no places on Earth where there is no night at all. However, if you're at the North or South Pole, you'll experience one night per year. The caveat is your night will last just under half a year, and your day will last a little bit longer than that. But can you imagine a world that had no night at all? Then imagine the chaos that would ensue if suddenly the lights went out and you saw the stars for the very first time. Our story is called Nightfall and first aired on Dimension X on November 29th, 1951.
Adventures in Time and Space. Transcribed in future tense.
Dimension X.
The National Broadcasting Company, in cooperation with Street and Smith, publishers of astounding science fiction, bring you Dimension X. Ralph Waldo Emerson speculated, if the stars should appear one night in 1,000 years, how would man believe and adore and perceive for many generations the remembrance of the city of God? Now, this was philosophically interesting. But on the edge of the galaxy, there is a planet which swings on its orbit in a cluster of 6 suns. These suns hang in the sky above. Never less than 2 shine down through the entire 23.8 hours of the planet's day. The yellow light has burned down on the planet continuously into the past, till the mind of man runneth not to the contrary. Theremin was a reporter for the Cerro City Chronicle. He covered them all, from the night police beat to politics to the sports pages. And the city editor wanted him to cover the biggest story of the year, perhaps of all time. It was an interview, a particularly difficult interview. But then, since his first days as a cub, Theremin had specialized in difficult interviews. He didn't expect violence, though, from an astronomer.
You're from that newspaper? Well, you've got a lot of gall coming here.
Now, wait a minute, Dr. Aton. It's only a job.
I've read your paper. You've been writing this observatory for 2 months now. You've attacked me personally. I have nothing to say to you.
All right, look, this is your chance to get your side in the paper. I'll give it to you straight. 2 months ago, the observatory issued a press statement that the world was coming to an end. Now, that's the same story that the cult of Revelations has been preaching. And when a scientist backs that up, it's news.
Our conclusions have nothing to do with the cult. The cult of Revelations is full of superstition and mysticism. We are scientists.
Yeah. And you got the people pretty angry.
That does not matter.
You know, if I can't get the story from you, I'll have to go somewhere else.
Go ahead.
All right. You know, Dr. Aton, the paper can be pretty rough on someone who doesn't cooperate.
Young man, if you're not out of the observatory within 5 minutes, I shall call the police. Now get out.
The reporter walks down the long hall from the observatory. The light filters through the high windows, the yellow light of Gamma, the brightest of the 6 suns in the planet's sky. Beta is almost at zenith. Its red light floods the landscape to an unusual orange. The planet's sun, Alpha, is at the antipodes. And now as Gamma sinks below the horizon, the red dwarf sun, Beta, is alone, grimly alone. It's a short drive from the observatory to Cerro City, and the red light glares from the highway. The temple of the cult stands, hewn from the solid rock of the Dormite Mountains, outside the city. And in the inner courtyard stands Sor, the priest of the cult.
Woe to the unbelievers! Their souls will rot with the absence of light.
Sor, wait. Your Reverence, please. Please. Tell me, Your Reverence, what will happen? What are you waiting for here?
The day of the coming, is written in our doctrine of Revelations. It came to pass that the sun, Beta, was alone in the sky. The world was shrunken and cold. Men did assemble in the public squares and highways. Their minds were troubled and their speech confused, for the souls of men awaited the coming of the stars. The lip of the cave of darkness passed the edge of Beta, and loud were the cries of men. There was no light on the surface of the world. In this blackness there appeared the stars in countless numbers. And in that moment the souls of men departed from them. Their abandoned bodies became even as beasts. And the stars then reached down the heavens' flame, and where it touched, the cities of the world flamed to destruction. So that of man and all the works of man naught remained. So it is written.
Dr. Sharon, you're the only scientist I could find in the city. Where is everybody?
In the hideout.
In the hideout?
The place bored me. I wanted to be out here where things are getting hot. I want to see the stars the cultists are talking about. Besides, they don't want me at the hideout. I'm too scrawny to survive.
Well, wait a minute. What is the hideout?
Well, we professors have managed to convince a few people that our prophecy of doom is valid. We've got about 3,000 people. They're supposed to hide where the darkness and the stars can't get at them. We hope they'll survive and leave records.
Survive? Survive what?
Oh, there are lots of names for it. The cultists have their myths.
Oh, yes. What about that? What is there to these myths? As a matter of fact, what is there to this doctrine of revelation?
I'm a psychologist, not an archaeologist. How true it is, I don't know. But the cultists say that every 2,050 years, all the suns disappear, and there is a total darkness. And then they say things appear called stars. Of course, men go mad. They mix all this up with a lot of religio-mystic notions, but that is the central idea.
Yeah. Well, that's impossible, isn't it? I mean, there are always at least 2 suns in the sky, most of the time 4 or 5.
There are not now, only Beta.
Dr. Sharon, you mean that there's going to be worldwide darkness tomorrow? That all mankind will go violently insane? What's behind that?
Well, for one thing, this is history of civilization of the world. We've located a series of cycles of civilizations comparable to our own, all of which, without exception, were destroyed by fire at the very height of their culture.
All right. But is there any scientific theory behind this and that would explain it?
The University Observatory finished their calculations 2 months ago. Tomorrow there will be an eclipse of Beta so that the planet will become dark. That eclipse comes every 2,049 years. Darkness comes. Maybe those mysterious stars that no man has ever seen. And then, madness and the end of civilization.
I see. And the scientists expect to live through this at the hideout, huh?
They plan to photograph the eclipse and leave the records, and then the rest of mankind will know what to expect.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Sharon, what is there in darkness to drive men mad?
Have you ever experienced darkness, young man?
No, but I know what it is. It's just, well, no light.
Draw the curtain.
Well, what for? If we had 4 or 5 suns out there, we might want to cut the light down for comfort, but with only Beta...
That is the point. Just draw the curtain and then come here and sit down.
All right. What? Dr. Sharon, I can't see you.
Feel your way.
Yeah, but I can't see anything.
Do you like it?
Well, no, it's awful. The walls. They seem to be closing in on me. I want to keep pushing them away.
All right. Draw the curtain back again.
The light. Dr. Sharon, have you got a drink?
Right here. That was just a dark room.
Yeah. It wasn't really so bad.
You're afraid.
Yes, I am. Just darkness can do that?
This isn't just a metaphysical theory, young man. It's promulgated from observed data. Come with me.
Where?
The locked ward down the corridor.
All right.
Were you at the Saro City Centennial Exposition 2 years ago?
No, I was overseas on assignment.
You remember hearing about the tunnel of mystery that broke all records in the amusement area?
Yeah. Wasn't there some fuss about it? The Anti-Vice Society had it shut down?
It was shut down, all right, but the Blue Noses had nothing to do with it.
Oh?
That tunnel was nothing but a mile-long passage through darkness. You rode in a little car, and it took 15 minutes to get through. Very popular while it lasted.
Popular?
There's a fascination in being frightened when it's part of a game. Absence of light is one of the instinctive human fears. People came out of that 15 minutes of darkness shaking and half dead with fear.
Half dead? I thought there were some deaths.
Bad hearts, but that wasn't the big danger. Now, which key is this?
Wait a minute, Dr. Sharon. Where are we going?
You'll see. No, the heart attacks were actually good for business, but there was something else. Here, I'll show you. want you to see somebody. Latimer. Latimer.
Go away.
Latimer, I want you to meet somebody. This is Mr. Theremin.
No. No, go away.
Hello?
He's pushing me. Make him stop pushing me. Go away.
I'm not touching him. What's wrong?
Latimer is afraid.
The walls. They're falling in on me, the walls. I've got to get out. Let me out.
You can't go out, Latimer. It's all right.
I've got to get out. Let me out. Let me out.
At sleeping period, we have to give him a shot of morphine. Otherwise, he'd bat his brains out against the wall.
Well, what's wrong with him?
Nothing. Nothing but 15 minutes in the darkness of the tunnel of mystery.
Oh, Doctor, that's impossible.
1 person out of 10 came out of the tunnel that way. That's why we had to shut it down.
Well, why? Why should darkness do that?
It's obvious man cannot exist without light. Longer periods of darkness would obviously be fatal. The scientific theory is that the consciousness of light is necessary for mental activity.
Please, Doctor, let me outside. Let me outside. Please, I can't breathe. They're pushing me. They're always pushing me. I can't stand it. I can't stand it.
There you are, Theremin. That's what 15 minutes of darkness will do. Man just wasn't built to operate without light. There are always at least 2 suns in the sky, most of the time more.
Yeah. Just 15 minutes of darkness.
Now then, look out of that window. Imagine darkness everywhere. No light as far as you can see. Black. Everything black. And the stars, whatever they are, well, can you conceive it? Your mind wasn't built for that conception. When the real thing comes, you'll go mad completely and permanently. There's no question of it. Tomorrow there won't be a city left standing in the world.
Well, why, Doctor? Why should the cities be destroyed?
If you were in darkness, what would you want more than anything else? What would it be that every instinct would call for? Light. And how would you get light?
I don't know.
You'd burn something, and every city in the world will go up in flames. Shall we go back to my office, Mr. Theremin, and have another drink?
Through the skies, the red sun Beta shines alone. The wind howls across the city. It's cold, colder than man can remember. And as the hour approaches, the reporter goes out and speaks to the man in the street.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, but I'm from the Chronicle. I'd like to talk to you.
Ah, a reporter, huh?
That's right.
My name is Pellet. 2 L's. Remember the 2 L's.
All right. Mr. Pellet, what's your occupation?
Power technician at the North Division plant.
Uh-huh.
You're making some kind of a survey, huh?
Yeah, in a way. Where are you going now?
Home for supper.
Well, how about, Well, what I mean is, what are you going to do tonight?
You mean about this star stuff?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, mister. It don't stand a reason that the end of the world is gonna come boom like that. It just don't stand a reason.
In other words, you don't believe it?
I didn't say that, but it just don't stand a reason.
Uh-huh. Have you read what the scientists say?
I don't read stuff like that. Only the headlines.
Yeah. How about the cult?
Well, now, like I always say, I've got nothing against religion.
You don't believe them either?
Well, they've always been shouting about doom and sin. Listen, bud, when you've been around as long as I have, you get to know the score. It's all right to preach that Judgment Day is coming and all, but just the same, I'm putting money in the bank.
Uh-huh. Well, tell me, how about darkness?
About what?
How would you feel if there was no light?
You crazy? How could there be no light?
Well, now, suppose all the suns went down at once. Suppose everything was black.
Well, it's crazy. What's the use of supposing something like that? It couldn't happen. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's all. Thank you.
Sure. Look, mister, remember, Pilot with 2 L's?
Oh, excuse me, sir, but I represent the Chronicle, and we're conducting a poll to determine public opinion with regard to the predicted end of the world. How do you feel about it?
All this talk of scientific explanation.
It's sinful. That's what it is.
Oh, I see. Well, then you're a member of the cult, sir.
I sure am. Been a member since I was a boy. My daddy was a member, too. I've seen the books. It's all writ down in the books.
Well, don't you believe the scientist's explanation?
Don't need it. Going to save my immortal soul. Going to stay on the mountaintop in a white robe while the stars carry me away to glory. Blessed be the stars. Amen.
Well, tell me, what are the stars?
The glory. The breath of the heaven. The spirit of the ultimate. That's what they are.
Uh-huh. Well, sir, the observatory has announced that it intends to take pictures of these stars.
Blasphemy. I sold my house. Gave all my money to the poor. Won't need it anymore. Going to heaven with stars. Glory, glory, going with the stars.
The reporter checks the stock exchange, the stores. Business at a standstill. Doesn't pay to buy anything today, not if the world's going to end tomorrow. There are predictions of economic collapse in the financial section, layoffs at the factories on the edge of the city. And through the streets, the people mill and turn, unsure, crying in fear or shouting with bravado. But the story isn't here in the city. And so as the hour approaches, the reporter goes again to the observatory high in the hills.
Now look, Dr. Raton, if you are right, if the world is going to be destroyed, what's the difference if I stay here and observe and take notes?
Well, nothing, I suppose, but you'll be in the way. We have work to do.
All right, if I stay out of the way.
I can't be bothered with you. Now, you'll have to leave, Mr. Theremin.
Hello. Hello.
Oh, hello, Dr. Sharon.
This place is like a morgue. It's freezing outside. The wind is enough to hang icicles on your nose. Beta doesn't seem to give any heat at all. It's so far away.
Why aren't you in the hideout, Sharon?
Me? I'm part of the race that isn't worth perpetuating. Who's got a bottle?
There will be no alcohol today. It would be too easy to get my men drunk. I can't afford to tempt them. Well, all right, Themin, you can stay, but keep out of the way.
Well, thank you, Doctor.
Well, gentlemen, I think it's time we took our positions. The observatory dome is up these stairs.
Yes, sir. After you, Doctor.
What's that? The dome, quick!
What is it?
The plates. The photographic plates, they're all smashed.
There he is. A cultist.
He's going for the telescope. After him.
I've got him! It must be destroyed. It must be.
It's all right. It's all right. He didn't harm anything. Let him up.
Well, that's the high priest, Dr. Raton. Soar is his name. I was talking to him yesterday.
What do you want, Soar?
Nothing that you would give me of your own free will.
I made a bargain with the cult to give me certain data you had. In return, I promised to prove the essential truth of the creed.
There was no need to prove that. Stands proved by the doctrine of revelations.
I offered scientific backing for you believers.
You made of the darkness and the stars a natural phenomenon, removed all its real significance. That was blasphemy.
The facts exist.
Your facts are a fraud and a delusion.
How do you know?
I know.
I suppose you think in trying to warn the world against the menace of madness, we are placing souls in jeopardy. Well, we have not succeeded, if that makes you feel better.
Your devilish instruments must be destroyed. We obey the will of the stars.
Someone call the police in Cerro City.
There's no time for that. Let me handle this. The eclipse is only a few minutes away. Look, Saw, will you give your word of honor to cause no trouble?
I will not.
Listen, just as soon as the eclipse starts, we're going to take you and put you in a closet with the door closed, and you'll stay there. Then you won't see the darkness, and you won't see the stars. And that means the loss of your immortal soul, according to the cult. All right now, will you give your word of honor?
You have it. You will all be damned for your deeds of today.
Look! Cameras! Yes, sir. Check the exposures carefully.
We will, sir.
You're shaking, Mr. Theremin.
Well, I don't feel very well, that's all.
You're not losing your nerve?
No, I'm just not used to this.
You could probably make the
Now,
hideout.
look, I've been assigned to cover a story and intend to cover it.
Professional honor?
Yeah. And I'd give my right arm for a bottle right now. I need a drink.
No.
What's that?
The cultist. That's the doctrine of revelations.
Well, I don't understand it.
He's chanting some old cycle language. The doctrine of revelations was originally written in it. There are probably 2 million people in Saros City who are trying to join the cult. One gigantic revival.
Dr. Sharon, how do the cultists manage to keep the doctrine of revelations going from cycle to cycle? If everyone goes mad, who wrote this doctrine?
There are some people who don't see the stars, the blind. They would have memories, and that, combined with the confused, incoherent babbling of the mad, form the basis for the doctrine of revelations. The cult will be riding high down there in the city. I hope they make the most of it.
Dr. Sharon, I've just heard from the hideout on private line.
They're in trouble?
They are safe, but the city is in shambles. You have no idea.
It'll get worse. What are you shaking about, Doctor? How do you feel?
I don't understand. The cultists are rousing the people to storm the observatory, promising them salvation, promising them anything.
How long till the total eclipse?
An hour. I'm going to check those calendars.
It's a gamble. It'll take time to get a mob out here. If the darkness comes first, we're all right. Look at Beta.
Yeah. It's cut in half.
It's getting darker. An interesting phenomenon.
My collar's suddenly tight.
Are you having any difficulty in breathing?
No. Why?
Difficulty in breathing is one of the first symptoms we've experimented.
I'm cold. It seems to be getting colder.
We'd better keep our minds on something else.
Yeah.
One of the astronomers has a theory about the stars. He thinks they may be suns that are too far away to see in the light. He developed a fantasy about a planet revolving around one sun. It's a mathematical possibility. Of course, there couldn't be any life. Part of the planet would always be dark and without light. Well, it's obvious. Without light, there can't be any life.
It's time for the artificial light. We can't read the instruments.
Artificial light?
One of the researchers in the university worked it out. It's animal grease packed around a wick. Here, I'll light it with this spark.
Why, it's beautiful. Yellow light. After 4 hours of red. It's beautiful. Light. Light.
The dome is quiet. The priest in his yellow robe sways slowly as his lips move in the ancient tongue. Over and over he whispers the invocation to the stars. The technicians hunch over the instruments, and the sky gradually turns a horrible deep purple red. The air grows denser. Dusk, like a palpable entity, enters the room. The dancing circle of yellow light about the torches etches itself into ever sharper distinction against the ever-gathering grayness beyond. Outside, Beta is a mere smoldering splendor, taking a last look at the world. The western horizon in the direction of the city is lost in darkness, and along the highway to the observatory surges a menacing, shadowy mass.
The mob from the city. They're coming.
How long till total eclipse?
15 minutes. But that mob will be here in 5.
We'll hold them off. Come on, Thurman, downstairs.
No, wait a minute. There's no light down there.
We have to block the door. Come on.
I can't breathe. I can't go down there.
Take a torch. We'll take light with us. Come on. Atten!
I'm here. Did you bar the door?
They won't get in.
All right now, everybody. 1 minute till totality. 1 minute. Just before totality, I'm changing the plate. That will leave one of you for each camera. Now remember, if you feel yourself going, get away from the camera.
It's dark. It's getting dark.
Sharon, where are you? I can't see you.
I'm
Sharon.
right here.
30 seconds.
Look out, the priest.
I can't see him.
And the wicked shall perish.
and the souls of the true believers shall be transported in glory to the stars.
You can see him against the torch.
Don't let him get to the telescope.
From the stars there reached down a heavenly flame, and where it touched, the cities of the world flamed to utter destruction.
Grab him! Grab him!
I'll take care of him. The world must be destroyed by the stars.
I got it!
5 seconds to totality. 4, 3, 2, 1.
The sky is black, and through it shine the stars. 30,000 minute suns shine down in soul-searing splendor. It's more frightening in its awful indifference than the bitter wind that shivers across the horrible, cold, bleak world.
The stars. The stars! The stars! The walls! The walls are coming in on me! They're coming in! Light! Light!
Darkness, forever and ever and ever, and the walls are breaking in. We did not know! We did not know! We did not know!
On the horizon, in the direction of the city, a crimson glow begins growing. 1,000 fires strengthen in brightness that is not the glow of the sun. 1,000,000 fires, as a world mad in the darkness screams in terror for the light. The night has come again.
What a story, and that has to be one of my favorites from the golden age of radio. Fascinating concept, and one that I can understand. As a kid, I always had to have my door open or some sort of nightlight. Total darkness scared me, and I remember wondering what was out there just out of reach. Today I love the dark and now consider it a welcome reprieve from the day's activities. I can close my eyes knowing that the sun will return the next morning. Something to think about, don't you think? Our story turned out to be the last production from Dimension X, and to the producers of the show, their tour de force. The script was later reused on X-1 in 1955 and was nominated for a Hugo. It was written by Isaac Asimov and was converted to radio by Ernest Kinoy. The original story, Nightfall, appeared in the September 1941 issue of Astounding Science Fiction. It was later adapted into a novel with the help of Robert Silverberg in 1990. The short story has been included in 48 anthologies and appeared in 6 collections of Asimov's works. In 1968, the Science Fiction Writers of America voted Nightfall the best science fiction short story and included it in the Science Fiction Hall of Fame, Volume 1, 1929 through 1964. It was the 32nd story written by Asimov while he was a graduate student in chemistry at Columbia University. A professor asked Asimov to write the story after discussing with him a quotation from Ralph Waldo Emerson, which reads, "If the stars should appear one night in 1,000 years, how would men believe and adore and preserve for many generations the remembrance of the city of God?" I hope that you enjoyed this one. I, for one, loved it.
As read by. Amazing stories read by amazing people.
To close out this week's special podcast, I thought we would have a story just for Thanksgiving, but it had to be something everyone would enjoy. Enter Sergeant Preston, Challenge of the Yukon. Following the success of the Lone Ranger and the Green Hornet on Detroit's WXYZ, then station owner George W. Trendle asked for a similar adventure show, but with a dog as a hero. Trendle insisted that it not be another Lassie because this must be an action story. It had to be a working dog. Writer Tom Dougal, who had been influenced by the poems of Robert W. Service, naturally chose a husky. The dog was originally called Mongo, but after criticism by Trendle, Dougal rechristened the canine King. Dougal likewise created Sergeant Preston, Canadian Mountie. What we will hear is a short tale from that series that played on Thanksgiving, November 28, 1946, exactly 73 years ago.
The challenge of the Yukon.
On, King! On, you husky!
The wonder dog King, swiftest and strongest of Eskimo lead dogs, blazes the trail through storm and snow for Sergeant Preston as he meets the challenge of the Yukon. Sergeant Preston was typical of the small band of Northwest Mounted Police who preserved law and order in the new Northwest country, where the greed for wealth and power led to frequent violence and bloodshed. But in spite of the odds against them, Sergeant Preston and his wonder dog King met that challenge, and justice ruled triumphant. Sergeant Preston stretched his feet toward the fireplace in Father McLean's cabin in Dawson. King, his big lead dog, lay down close beside him and watched the flickering flames through half-closed eyes. Father McLean eased his portly figure into the chair opposite the Mountie with a contented eye.
Yeah. Even Thanksgiving is no excuse for eating as much as I did today. That dinner was too much of a temptation.
Well, it was a wonderful meal, Father. That cook of yours is a prize. I feel like I'd swallowed a whole deer.
It's a good thing Thanksgiving Day comes but once a year.
You were awfully nice to let me share your dinner with your father. It's not often I get food like that.
The people in my church are very thoughtful of me on holidays. They bring food that one doesn't expect to get way up here in the North Country.
You know, Father, 2 years ago, I had dinner with another priest on Thanksgiving. Nothing like this one, though. His congregation was very bitter about him at the time.
Bitter? Had he done something wrong?
Well, they thought so. It's rather a long story, Father.
Well, what could be better than a story sitting here before the fire after dinner?
The priest was Father Haley. He left this part of the country before you arrived. He's the one who started the mission in Dawson.
Oh, yes, I've heard of him.
It was before they built the church that's there now. At the time, Father Haley was busy raising funds for it. He was a lovable old man, big fellow with twinkling blue eyes and a good sense of humor. He was very fond of dogs, too, and King was a big favorite of his. I'd been on a patrol north and was coming back to Dawson. About 10 miles from town, I was mushing along the trail, and suddenly I heard a dog.
Oh, King! Hello, you huskies!
Stay here, King. I'll see what's happening. Well, fellow, what's wrong? Oh, poor fellow, you stuck your foot in a trap. Wait a minute, I'll get it out. There. Now, come on, boy. I'm taking you with me. You can ride on my sled back to Dawson. He was a gentle dog, Father. Part setter and part shepherd. We never found out who owned him. Father Haley's cabin was on the trail near the outskirts of town. It was evening when I reached it. Father Haley held the door open while I carried the dog in.
Take him over there by the fire, Sergeant. Now I'll bring a lamp so we can have a look at him.
Well, lie down here, fella. That's it. Well, you got that bandage off, didn't you?
Yeah, now we can see. Well, he's licked it nice and clean, hasn't he?
Yes, I guess he can take care of it better than we can. I'm afraid he's going to lose 1 or 2 toes, though.
Well, I guess there's nothing more we can do for him except feed him.
It'll heal up all right, Father, if he stays off it a while.
You're going to leave him here with me, aren't you?
Why, that'll be fine if you want him. I have to leave town again tomorrow.
I'd be glad to have him. He's a nice dog. If his owner doesn't show up, I'll keep him permanently.
Well, Shep, you're a lucky dog.
He's wagging his tail. Maybe that's his name.
It's as good a name as any.
I'll call him that. He seems to like it. Now, let me warm up a cup of tea.
Oh, no, don't bother Father Haley. You have enough to do taking care of Shep. Anyway, I'd better get into town.
You say you're going away again tomorrow?
Yes, I'll be away quite a few weeks, I think.
I wanted you to have Thanksgiving dinner with me, Sergeant.
Oh?
You think you'll be back by then? It's 3 weeks off.
Well, that's nice of you, Father. I'll do my best to get back.
We've been raising funds to build a new church. And I hope to have enough by then to warrant a special Thanksgiving celebration.
Well, that's encouraging. This town could certainly use a church. I'll try and get back for it. Now I guess I'd better go. I have to make a few stops in town before bedtime.
Hello, Sergeant. Glad to see you.
Hello, boys. How are you?
You're just in time, Sergeant.
Huh?
We're taking up a contribution for the new church that Father Haley is planning to build.
Well, that's fine, Butch. I didn't know you were interested in church.
Butch started it by giving a whole bag of gold dust.
Gold Nugget Bar is a funny place to be doing it, but I'm all for it.
Think maybe you won't pry quite so long, Pete?
We're going to need another half. This one's full. Sergeant, you better take this money out to Father Haley.
Well, sure, I'll be glad to.
I'll take it out if you're too busy.
Oh, I'll be going past his house tomorrow. I can drop it off.
Ain't staying in town for a while, Sergeant?
Have to make another patrol, Ben. Be leaving tomorrow or the next day.
Well, there's the money, Preston.
Well, this is heavy. A lot of money here.
That's nothing to what he'll have in a week or two. This is just the started going. The whole town's chipping in. Sure.
I left the gold at Father Haley's cabin the next day. The collection had netted about $2,000. I was quite surprised that Butch Harvey had started such a thing. Butch was a newcomer in town, and I hadn't liked him from the first time we met.
I see.
There's nothing I could put my finger on exactly.
You Mounties must get quite good at judging men on sight.
Oh, I've been wrong about a lot of men, Father. My judgment isn't always right.
Well, we all make mistakes.
I decided I'd been wrong about Butch, and maybe he was doing this to prove to the town that he was all right.
And, was he?
No, Father. I left town the next day after leaving the money with Father Haley. My trip took me far south, and I wasn't around while the church fund built up. As I learned later, Butch and his partner Ben were very active getting collections, and the whole town contributed. 3 days before Thanksgiving, Father Haley had raised over $15,000. He was putting some gold into the box that evening when Shep scratched on the door. Father Haley put his parka on.
Well, you want to go out for a walk, Shep? I've been so busy today I didn't take you for your walk. All right, boy, go on out. I'll put on my things right away. I'm coming, boy, as soon as I put this box away. There. That ought to be all right.
Good evening, Father Haley.
Hey, Butch, I'm sorry I didn't hear you knock. Hello, Ben.
Hello, Father.
Sit down, boys. I was just going for a walk with Shep. Wait till I put this box away.
Don't put the box away.
Eh? Oh, did you bring another contribution?
Not exactly, Father. This time you're doing the contributing.
What do you mean?
Get the box, Ben.
Sure.
But you don't mean you're taking the church fund?
That's not all we're taking. You're coming with us.
What?
Here's the box.
Take it out to the bed. Hey, come on, Father, before I get nervous and pull this trigger. Don't keep me waiting.
Father Haley went with them out into the dark. They tied him to the sled and drove off. Nobody noticed old Shep. The dog watched the sled disappear and then limped after it. The team outdistanced him quickly, but he kept on through the night, following the scent.
Did they intend to murder Father Haley?
Well, Butch would have, but Ben wouldn't agree to it. They argued about it on the way.
You're crazy, Ben. He can find his way back, I tell you. It's getting light and he can see the trail.
We're going to turn off the trail, ain't we?
But he can see landmarks. He can follow our tracks back, too.
What's wrong with taking his glasses away from him? He can't see without them. I tell you, I won't murder a priest.
Oh, hold your huskies, all right. We'll turn off here and head for the mountains. I'll take his glasses off and we'll lose him in the hills. Yeah, I don't see the difference. He'll die of starvation or freeze to death.
I got back to town the following day. The weather had been clear, and I made a special effort to spend Thanksgiving with Father Haley.
Had anyone discovered he was gone?
Oh, yes. The whole town was in an uproar. Some of the people thought Father Haley had run off with the money. Pete Darcy met me just as I came into town. He was very excited.
Sergeant Preston! Sergeant Preston!
Okay. Oh, you huskies. What's wrong, Pete?
Well, I'm sure glad you got back, Sergeant. Father Haley has disappeared with all the church money.
Disappeared? When?
Day before yesterday. People think maybe he ran off with it. Maybe he wasn't a priest at all.
That's ridiculous, Pete. He'd never go away unless someone forced him to. Were there any tracks around?
Well, lots of people have been in and out to see him. He lives near the trail that's well used.
Yes, I know.
Town's pretty mad about it. Everybody's giving lots of money to that fund.
Come along, Pete. We'll go to his cabin now and look it over.
You see, Sergeant, his park is gone, his fire's out, and the money's gone.
Yes. I wonder what became of Shep.
Shep?
The dog he had.
Oh.
He certainly wouldn't try to travel with a lame dog.
Nobody thought about the dog. He ain't had him very long.
Come on outside, Pete. Maybe we can still find Shep's tracks.
Your own dog has made tracks all over.
Here is Shep's. You see that front foot?
Yeah, he's lame. Doesn't put much weight on it, and it's crooked.
Here, King. These tracks, boy. Can you find him?
I'm afraid the trail is cold by this time, Sergeant.
Well, it hasn't snowed for 2 days. These tracks lead away from town. We could probably pick them up, but the snow hasn't been trampled. I'm going to try it, Pete.
You want me to come with you, Sergeant?
Why, no, I'll go alone. I'll take what supplies I can find at Father Haley's cabin here. Can't stop for more. Maybe a long trip. My team was tired, but we kept going. After a while, the trail of the dog was easier to follow. Shep's foot had started to bleed where the snow and ice had broken open the freshly healed cut.
You mean that dog kept right on going in spite of it?
He'd become very fond of Father Haley. When the tracks turned off the trail, it was easy to follow them. Shep, by then, was going on 3 legs.
When did you find Father Haley?
Well, not until the next evening. Shep had found him the night before. They were huddled together in a clump of spruce trees at the base of the mountain. Father Haley had no idea where he was. Here, Father. Put this blanket around you. I'm glad you built a fire.
It isn't much of a fire. I had some matches in the pocket of my pocket.
Who did all this, Father?
But you did.
Oh?
They've gone off with the gold. They took my glasses from me, and I couldn't find enough wood. If Shep hadn't come, I'd have frozen. We kept each other warm.
I found you by following Shep's tracks.
Yes, poor fellow. He was ready to drop when he found me. He dragged himself to me, his poor foot all bloody. Feed him first, Sergeant.
I will, Father. Now, you relax and don't worry about the church funds. I'll telegraph Butch and Ben's description to the border. They're headed for Eagle City. And now I'll get some food ready.
It's not the Thanksgiving dinner we had planned, is it, Sergeant?
No, it isn't, Father. But there's plenty to be thankful for.
Were the 2 thieves, Butch and Ben, caught?
They were caught at the border by one of our men. Most of the money was returned.
As Father Haley said, that must have been a rather slim Thanksgiving dinner you had that night.
Yes, 'twas, Father. But it's one I'll never forget. We sat at the base of the towering mountain. The moon glistened on the snow, and it was deathly still. Father Haley sat beside the flickering fire, Shep's head in his lap. He hadn't eaten for 2 days. But when I put his food in front of him, he didn't eat at once. He bowed his head and gave thanks. It wasn't a short prayer, and as he ended it, I felt a lump at my throat.
And I thank the Lord for sending Shep to me. Please grant me the faith and courage that is his, and help me to follow thee with an equal love and trust.
These copyrighted dramas originate in the studios of WXYZ Detroit. and all characters, names, places, and incidents used are fictitious. They are sent to you each week at this same time.
I hope you enjoyed that little tale. Heartwarming, don't you think? Thus ends Podcast 412. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. Next week, we will return to our normal format and have more of your stories and many other surprises. If you want to follow the podcast or the blog, just head to ronsamazingstories.com. There, you will find an amazing number of links that should fit every need. Do you want to help the show? The best thing you can do is to tell your friends all about it, and please leave reviews or feedback wherever you listen. This is what makes podcasts grow. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.
All of the vintage audio used in the podcast is believed to be in the public domain. Ron's Amazing Stories does not own the rights to any of the old-time radio used here. If you hold the rights to any of the shows played, please contact us immediately at ronsamazingstories.com.